Let's try another one. Let's take a look at C. Notice C is actually perfectly set up for substitution. The reason being is if you look at that first equation, is the x is already by itself. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to use that equation, that first equation, and leave it as is. I don't need to do anything to it. But if I'm going to do that, then I still have to plug it into my second equation. So I'm going to take my second equation, the 3x minus 9y equals 0. And what this first equation says is I can replace x's with 3y. So I'm going to replace any x's with according to this, 3y. So I'm going to replace the x with a 3y. Again, don't forget your parentheses. Anything else in your equation, though, is going to stay the same. So now, order of operations is going to tell me to go ahead and do my multiplication next, which is the, let's see, the 3 times 3y, which will give me 9y. We already have a minus 9y and equals 0. Well, we're getting something odd here. We have 9y minus 9y. We have 9y minus 9y equals 0. Well, the reason why I say it's odd is you can't really solve that as an equation. What it is it's just a true statement. Anything, if you take itself away or subtract it, you will get 0. So what does this mean then? Well, if you're getting a statement like this that is always true, what's happening is that means that this equation, this set of equations or lines is always going to be true. Well, what does that mean? Remember that we're talking about equations that we're worried about when the two lines intersect, and we're saying the answer is always true. That means that they're going to be intersecting everywhere. It means that they are the same exact line. So there's a couple different ways we can write this solution. Sometimes they'll let us get away with just saying that because they're the same line, they'll intersect in infinitely many places. So you'll have infinitely many solutions. Will they always let us get away with that? No. Sometimes they want that fancy answer we talked about, which is where we start out with our little set braces and we say all the points and then such that, and then in the space that comes next, we'd want to input our lines. It doesn't matter which line you technically input in there, but my MATLAB does technically usually like the one that's smaller. So I would use the one that's x equals 3y, but it technically doesn't matter. And if somehow my MATLAB did mark you wrong, I would certainly give you back all your points if it's your last attempt on the problem, or if it's on a test, I would definitely give you back all your points because it does not matter. You're just going to input one of the two lines here. And again, what this means is, if you read it like a sentence, it means all the points x, y such that they're on this line. So that means that both lines have all those points, and that's where the two lines will intersect. It's just only on the points that they share. So let's take a look at this next one on D. On D, again, we have something really nice because if you look at the first equation, y equals negative 4x, it's already set up for substitution because the y is by itself. So I'm going to use that as my first equation, but it's already done for me. So then all I need to worry about is my second equation and taking my first one and plugging it into it. So my second equation, my 8x plus 2y equals 4. And then I'm going to take my first equation, which says I can replace any y's with negative 4x. So let's make that swap. As I'll replace my y with negative 4x. Don't forget that you're supposed to be putting parentheses around when you make that swap. And we still have our equals 4 on the other side. So now let's do any math we can do. So we've got our 8x out in front. plus, actually not plus necessarily, we now have a 2 times a negative 4x, which will actually give us a negative 8x equals 4. Can keep on going. Remember, I can go ahead and add and subtract any like terms that are on the same side. Well, I've got an 8x minus an 8x, which is just the number 0 on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side, I get the number 4. And you're probably scratching your head saying, okay, I must have done something wrong, but you haven't. This actually means something. Well, we know that if we actually look at the equation 0 equals 4, we're going to say, that never works. So this is never true. And this is a valid answer. The question is translating it and what it means about our two lines. We're asking when our two lines intersect. And we're saying that's never true. What does that mean then? It means our lines are never going to intersect. Well, what kind of lines never intersect? Parallel lines. So these are parallel lines, and if they never intersect, how many answers does that mean we have? It means we end up with none. So there are no solutions because these lines are parallel. They are never going to intersect. There's no solutions.